So I think that Putin thinks he's in a better position than he's actually in. I think he's in a precarious position, and I'll explain why in just a minute. We'll get to that by the end of this video. But right now, Putin's men are kind of just saber-rattling and putting up a strong front and saying, we don't need this. Okay, well, let's look at the stories here. There are three big stories, actually four big stories today. After the Kremlin accused Ukraine of ignoring its ceasefire proposal, Zelensky responded that he had never received one. What ceasefire proposal? If we're talking about Istanbul, the Ukrainians never got the Istanbul proposals that were supposed to be public already before they get to the meeting, and they'll be surprised by them and that sort of thing. Okay, Peskov says that the Russian delegation is flying to Istanbul and will wait for the Ukrainians there on June 2nd. Today is May 30th, so we're just a couple of days away. By the way, my name is Darren Gertis. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. I do these every day. Led by historian Medinsky, at the same one that the U.S. had asked not to send again. The Kremlin wants to discuss both versions of the memorandum in Istanbul, the Russian and the Ukrainian ones. However, their text will not be made public, according to Peskov. So that's where they are. Now, let's listen to this as well. Ahead of the next round of talks, Ukraine is, quote, hysterically provoking, unquote, Russia to sabotage negotiations. Sure, Ukraine is trying to sabotage negotiations. You have to understand, if you're not familiar with Russian propaganda, they do this weird mirroring effect where they accuse their opponents of whatever they're doing very often. This claim was made by State Duma Defense Committee head Andrei Katarpilov. Okay, he argues that for Zelensky, now why would Ukraine want to stall negotiations? He argues that for Zelensky, the war has become profitable. Sure. In Germany, he was promised 5 billion euros. Why? If talks are ongoing. Because they need to rearm and refuel and get ready for what Russia's about to do. That's why. It means Europe isn't interested in peace. Only Russia is. But we will achieve peace on the battlefield or at the table on our terms, he says. Okay, sure. Yeah. Okay, so it's become profitable for Zelensky, and that's why he's not doing it, he says. Okay, meanwhile, at the UN, the next big story, Russia's UN envoy, Nebenzia, once again pushed the absurd Kremlin propaganda claiming, quote, no new sanctions, weapons for Ukraine, or other hostile actions will prevent the inevitable military defeat of the Zelensky regime. They've been saying that for years. A good thing they didn't put a timetable on it, right? Like, we'll be done in 2 weeks. He repeated the baseless accusations about Ukrainian strikes on civilian infrastructure. Ukraine doesn't spend its time targeting Russian civilians, but they spend their time on military structures and logistics because they don't want it coming back at them. Okay. Now, at the same time, the U.S. will leave the talks if Russia continues the war. This is according to Acting Deputy Permanent Representative of the U.S. to the UN, John Kelly. This would be exactly what the Russians want. So maybe that's why they just keep stalling, because if they stall long enough, maybe the U.S. will just give up and let them do what they want to do. He stressed that by doing this, the U.S. will not abandon its principles, and even more so, its partners. But that would be kind of abandoning your principles and your partners. Quote, rather, we recognize Russia's refusal to cooperate with us to achieve the desired result. We condemn Russia's decision to carry out one of the largest missile and drone strikes over the past weekend. This does not demonstrate a desire for peace. The agreement that is being proposed now is the best possible outcome for Russia. Putin must conclude the agreement, he said. Okay, so, but you're signaling that you may just walk away. That's not good for anyone. Meanwhile, Trump's envoy, Keith Kellogg, says the U.S. is willing to discuss NATO non-expansion as part of a peace deal with Russia. The U.S., UK, France, Germany will all send security advisors to Istanbul on June 2nd, and that could be on the table. Now, I'm going to talk about what else is on the table, but first a little bit about NATO. The myth that NATO, this is Gabrielas Landsbergis, the former foreign minister from Lithuania. Remember, Lithuania was involuntarily rolled into the Soviet Union at one point. The myth that NATO enlargement threatened Russia's security is textbook Russian propaganda, not fair concerns. Oh, and by the way, in 2022, when they're saying that, they knew that they couldn't become part of NATO because there was an ongoing border dispute within Ukrainian territory. Okay, it's not fair concerns. Those fair concerns simply seek to push NATO's borders back to Berlin, as Putin himself clearly said before the invasion. Let's stop pretending that we don't know this. And then there was another great comment here. I'm going to go back to this before Macron. Czech foreign minister on the Russian demands for non-expansion of NATO said this, quote, NATO expansion meets the security interests of the Russian Federation. Where Russian borders NATO countries, there's no war. In other places, there is. Wow, what a great quote. Now, we're talking about upcoming events. Macron is saying, I spoke 48 hours ago with President Trump, who expressed his impatience. The question now is, what do we do about it? We are ready, stressed Macron. Well, unfortunately, you're getting to both non-negotiable points over 5 oblasts that the Russians have taken from the Ukrainians. So we're not even talking about the morality of what's happened, because the morality would say game goes to Ukraine. But we're talking about non-negotiable points, and I don't know what you can get out of this. Trump doesn't want to actually do anything about it. This feels to him like an obnoxious waste of time of things that he doesn't want to be involved in. After all, it's not my war, it's Joe Biden's war. If Trump walks away, who benefits? It's not going to probably be Ukraine. It's going to be Russia. Okay, well, I mean, it could be worse. Trump could work with Putin to give Ukraine a really bad deal, but okay. Meanwhile, Lindsey Graham and Senator Blumenthal, these are Republican Lindsey Graham from South Carolina and Democrat from Connecticut, Blumenthal, are meeting with Zelensky. They're the co-authors of the bill that we're about to talk about, and they've been strong, both of them have been very strong supporters of Ukraine. Here's Senator Lindsey Graham's statement after the meeting in Kyiv. I would expect next week that the Senate, the U.S. Senate, will start moving the sanctions bill. There are House members that are ready to move in the House, and you'll see congressional action. President Trump said that this next 2-week period will be outcome determinative. Well, he said that a number of times, so, take it with a grain of salt, but let's keep going forward. I see nothing about that meeting on Monday in Istanbul to give me any hope at all that Russia is interested in peace. I'm right there with them. I don't see that either. So when this 2-week period is over, I think it'll be pretty clear to everybody Russia is playing a game at the expense of the world, not just the United States. We're going to change that game for Russia. That game that Putin's been playing is about to change. He's going to be hit, and hit hard, by the United States when it comes to sanctions. China. The game that you're playing with Russia is about to change. If you keep buying cheap Russian oil to fuel Putin's war machine, there will be a 500% tariff on all your products coming into the United States. Now that'll work, and he'll get a supermajority in the Senate and probably even in the House, because either there's support for Ukraine or support for the 500% tariff on China, and those things are kind of flowing together. And I think there's even a great possibility that Trump could sign that. Now, I'm being speculative, but everything I know after studying all these characters and what's going on in Ukraine and the my knowledge of Republicans and that sort of thing tells me that there's a high possibility, a probability that this could actually take. So when? I don't know. I can't tell you that. I can't give you a timetable. But is it possible that this kind of bill could go forward and Trump would even sign it? Yeah, it's even possible. Or it's another scenario is that Trump doesn't sign it. And this is a scenario that I think is what Trump would actually like. Trump vetoes it, but then the Senate and the House override Trump. Then it's not because Trump did it, but then it's because the House and Senate overrode the president, and his relationship with Vladimir Putin, Trump's relationship, is still intact. Okay, let's keep going. A few little stories now. A new intercepted call receives that Russia is cutting gas to and forcing evacuations from the Belgorod border villages as it creates a militarized gray zone delineated with barbed wire fencing. That's within Russia. So they're doing that because they understand the stakes and the movement back and forth. Okay, and then proving once again that sanctions work, the lifeline of Russia's war machine is now exporting 25% less oil than just 4 months ago. With UK and EU sanctions soon to hit, we expect this to fall further. Okay, so the big sanctions came in January. This is where, like, Biden's parting shot to Russia. Okay, and then now, since then, it's been a lot lower. Okay, well, let's see what the new sanctions do. Okay. This is a funny story. So a woman on TV is asking, attention, question, Vladimir Vladimirovich, what do you do to look so good? I want to look like that too. Movement, you know? And first of all, you look great. Thank you. Yes, I'm speaking frankly. And secondly, it's important when we have some goals in life and we strive to achieve them, it always mobilizes us, always disciplines us, always makes us do the right things and keeps us motivated. In my opinion, this is the most important thing, and everything else is stuff that comes with it. Sports, regime, and so on. But the most important thing is to have some internal important goals. Now, we didn't say like destroying your neighbor and taking their stuff and genocide and that sort of thing, but yeah, some important goals. Okay, finally, Darth Putin, Russia, quote, we are prepared to continue our invasion for as long as it is necessary. Nothing can prevent our military victory in Ukraine. My trolls, it's Ukraine that wants to keep the war going. Didn't they just say that? Didn't they just say that in here, that Ukraine wanted to keep it going? What, for the German money? Okay. That's all that I have, my friends. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.